23 seconds. Jared Moscowitz asked the question and waited. Did the FBI conduct any investigation into the powerful names mentioned in these Epstein documents? Yes or no? Kash Patel looked at his lawyers. He looked at his assistants. He looked at his hands. No sound was heard. 23 seconds. Then Patel spoke. The FBI follows all credible leads in accordance with established investigative priorities and resource allocation frameworks. Moskowitz laughed. It wasn't a real laugh, sharp and harsh. You said no with these 73 words. This was not a prepared exit. Moskowitz had come with a red folder. It contained newly declassified documents, flight manifests, witness statements, and these documents caused everyone in the room to hold their breath. Watch the full video, because what happened in the next 11 minutes took this hearing to a place far beyond an ordinary inspection session. But to understand why those 23 seconds felt so heavy, you need to know what Moskowitz put in that folder. Chapter 1. Who is Moskowitz? Jared Moscowitz, Florida Congressman, former Florida Emergency Management Director, member of the Judiciary Committee. Moskowitz does not fit the profile of a gentleman politician in Washington. He asks directly. He doesn't get involved in protocol games. But that day, he was carrying something different. Red folder. At least 40 pages, marked with yellow sticky notes, and containing documents that had been declassified the night before at 11 p.m. This detail was critically important. Moskowitz clearly stated the date of declassification of these documents. So, as of that morning, they had become public, and they could now be read aloud in court. Section 2. Standard Start. The hearing began at 2:47 p.m., Senate Judiciary Committee Standard Oversight Session. Patel came prepared. Suit, prepared answers, 3 lawyers. He had been through this many times before. The first 90 minutes were as expected, with Republicans asking about the field office staff, while Democrats brought up the January 6th investigations, and Patel gave pre-prepared answers to every question, checking his watch and sipping water twice, looking bored. Then Moskowitz took the floor. Director Patel? I want to talk about transparency. Patel nodded slightly, as if he knew where he was going. Of course, Congressman, the FBI will operate with the highest level of transparency. Great, Moskowitz smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. I have some documents that the American people need to see, he said. Chapter 3. The folder opened. He placed the red folder on the table, thick, tabbed. Patel's hands pressed lightly against the edge of the table. Congressman, I am ready to discuss properly classified materials, but bunlar tasnif edildi. Last night at 11 p.m., the confidentiality was lifted. It's public, so I can read it out loud and there's nothing to stop me, he said, and the atmosphere in the room changed. Graham looked at his phone while Durbin leaned forward and the C-SPAN camera operator approached, a move that is almost never made in such hearings. Moskowitz opened the folder. These are FBI documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Specifically, materials documenting individuals who visited Epstein's properties, boarded his plane, and were mentioned in witness statements. He looked at Patel. You recognize these files, don't you? Congressman, the FBI maintains extensive records on many investigations. Specific. I will show you the specifics. I will show you the specifics. If you want to follow these types of trial analyses and document processes, you can subscribe to our channel and keep notifications on. Let's continue. Chapter 4. Visitor Logs. Moskowitz pulled out the first page. This is the visitor log for Epstein's mansion in Palm Beach, Florida. Date, March 14, 2003. He started reading the names. The first 3 were names whose connections had been discussed in public before. The 4th had come up repeatedly. But when the 5th name was read, the hall fell into such a silence that no one was breathing. Director Patel? Moskowitz's voice hardened. This name appears in these records 17 times over a 6-month period. 17 documented visits. However, when Congress requested these documents 2 years ago, they were classified on the grounds of being too sensitive to be made public. He removed the page. Why? Patel reached for the glass of water. His hand was steady. But that little pause before speaking told everything. Congressman, classification decisions are confidential
ongoing investigations and there is no ongoing investigation, Moskowitz cut in. Epstein is not alive. Maxwell is in prison. This issue was not about protecting an investigation, but about protecting powerful individuals.
Chapter 5. Flight Manifesto. But the real critical point was this. Moskowitz had not yet finished. He pulled out a different document. Bigger, thicker paper. Official letterhead. "This," said Moskowitz slowly, "is the flight manifest for Epstein's private jet. Date, July 22nd, 2000. He left that date hanging in the air. The passenger list contains 4 names. 3 were made public over the years. The 4th name was redacted in all previous releases of the document." He paused. "Director Patel, it was redacted 3 months after you took office, within your purview." When he said this, Patel started to speak, but Moskowitz raised his hand. "Not done yet. This blacked-out name appears on 12 separate flight manifests. 12 flights to Palm Beach, New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands." He lifted the document, so that the cameras would see. A signature was clearly visible at the bottom, even in C-SPAN's standard definition broadcast, and social media had started talking about the issue within 90 seconds. Moskowitz did not read the name aloud. The document had already done that. Chapter 6. Witness Testimony. And at that moment, the situation took a different turn. Patel's lawyer leaned forward and whispered hurriedly. Patel shook his head slightly and said, "Congressman, flight manifests from over 20 years ago without any context necessarily," when Moskowitz interrupted saying, "Let me give you the context," and pulled out another page. "This is the testimony of a woman who worked at Epstein's Manhattan residence from 1999 to 2002. Her testimony was given to the FBI in 2009. He read, "I saw him in person at least 5 or 6 times. It was always in the evening, always with Jeffrey. They looked like old friends. The gallery really made a noise. The kind that seems exaggerated in movies. But this happens when 50 people simultaneously realize something important." "Director Patel?" Moskowitz lowered the document. "When he said, 'This witness statement has been sitting in the FBI files for 16 years. 16 years. Why was it classified, Senator?' Patel paused and added, 'Congressman, that little slip, that verbal misstep, said it all." Chapter 7. Redacted Names. Moskowitz did not brush this off. The FBI does not make classification decisions to protect individuals. Our protocols, your protocols, protected this specific individual. Moskowitz interrupted. And we both know why it is this way. He pulled out the last document, single page. He held it with a careful movement, as if it were fragile. This is a Department of Justice memorandum. Date, March 27th, 2024. 3 months after you became FBI director. It read, "The Classification Review Board has been directed to expedite the review of all Epstein-related materials referencing current or former government officials." And he turned his gaze to Patel. "Below is the signature of your deputy director. Did you authorize this memo, Director Patel?" Patel's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "The Classification Review Board, under the protocols," he said, and then asked, "Did you authorize it? Yes or no?" Patel replied, "Congressman, that specific," and received the answer, "You don't remember," as Moskowitz slowly shook his head. This memo resulted in the reclassification of 23 documents that had previously been made public. And in each of these 23 documents, the same name appears. The name mentioned in the flight records, the name mentioned in the witness statement, the name that still appears in the photos you refuse to publish. the name in the photos you still refuse to publish. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe and keep notifications on. We will continue to analyze the developments of this process here. Chapter 8. Moskowitz stood up. And this changed the course of the trial. Moskowitz stood up. Standing up during questioning in congressional hearings is not done. There is no written rule. But it's not done. Very aggressive. Very unusual. Moskowitz didn't care. Director Patel, I will ask you a direct question. I want a yes or no answer. Patel slowly shook his head, but his eyes were telling me to ask the question I wanted to ask. Has the FBI conducted any investigations into the individuals named in these Epstein documents? There was a 23-second silence. Patel looked at his lawyers and aides, but no help came. FBI follows all credible leads in accordance with established investigative priorities and resource allocation frameworks. Moskowitz let out a sharp laugh. You said no in 73 words. You said no with 73 words. Chapter 9. Public Reaction. The trial technically continued. Cybersecurity, Chinese espionage. No one was listening. Within 5 minutes, the clips spread every place. News channels interrupted their broadcasts, and legal analysts began discussing the limits of reclassification authority and the rights of Congress over documents. 2 separate streams of commentary emerged on social media. Why were these documents released to the public so late? And where are the procedural boundaries of Moskowitz's methods? This dichotomy shows the gravity of the issue. Chapter 10. Claim or Reality. At this point, a critical distinction needs to be made. Verified. The documents presented by Moskowitz are based on declassified materials and entered into the court record. Patel did not explicitly deny the memo, stating that the 23 documents were reclassified. After 23 seconds, he did not answer the question with a direct yes or no. Controversial or unverified. Some of Moskowitz's claims include statements like, "We both know." These statements are of the kind made in congressional hearings, not a legal indictment. Which name appears in the flight records has not been officially confirmed, but Moskowitz showed the document, and the legal process regarding Patel's direct role in these classification decisions has not yet been completed. The technical point that legal analysts emphasize: reading a declassified document in court does not mean that the information within it has been verified. Verification is a separate legal process. Moskowitz's presentation created a record that could initiate this process. Chapter 11. 23 seconds. 23 seconds. Moskowitz didn't shout. He didn't put on a show for the camera. He brought declassified documents. He listed the dates, names, and numbers. And he put Patel in a position where he had to answer. If he says yes, the question arises as to why no investigation was conducted. If he says no, the question arises as to why the alleged names were so protected. Patel was caught between the two, couldn't respond in 73 words, and this went on record. Next steps are unclear. It is still unclear whether the additional documents requested by Moskowitz will be published. Legal proceedings are ongoing. But questions were asked, no answers were given. This division will not easily fall off the public agenda. If you have followed this analysis up to this point and want to keep track of such congressional oversight processes, subscribe to our channel and keep the notifications on. We will continue to analyze the fate of the documents requested by Moskowitz and the reclassification process here. In the comments, I wonder, what should be the standard for presenting declassified documents in congressional hearings? How should the balance between the public's right to know and procedural safeguards be established? See you in the next video.